NEPM's podcasts are funded by Armbrook Village, offering research-based arts, music, fitness, and lifelong learning programs at their assisted living and Alzheimer's care community in Westfield. armbrookvillage.com.
Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monty Belmonte. Later in the show, Amherst Media's Gene Haggerty Award winner, Ms. Jacqueline Wallace, who, amongst many other things, directs the Amherst Area Gospel Choir. We'll talk with Ms. Wallace and Amherst Media board members and hear about the gala where you can celebrate with each of them.
But first, it is the time of year where everyone is taking stock of what the year hath wrought, and that includes our Springfield-based dictionary, Merriam-Webster.
Hey there.
Oh, it's like Christmas for Merriam-Webster today.
Just like, exactly the same.
It's the most wordiful time of the year. Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster, our dictionary in Springfield. Today is the day that Merriam-Webster announced their word of the year. But a few things first before we unveil that word if you haven't heard it yet. One, thanks for being Tiny Tim at our version of A Christmas Carol the other day.
Oh my gosh, that was
And
so
Young
fun.
Scrooge.
And Young Scrooge.
You had two parts.
Taking
And
up
Young Scrooge.
an additional role last minute to play Young Scrooge to Elizabeth Perkins' Scrooge, which was really fun. That'll be on the radio sometime in the next couple weeks. I don't even know when
believe
exactly.
Christmas Eve and or Christmas Day.
Nice.
Woohoo, fantastic. That was so fun.
Yay, thanks for being a part of it.
And Salman Hamid, who we bumped from today's show to make room for the word of the year, was also part of that, and he'll be on Wednesday's show in the Word Nerds spot.
Yes.
But
We had two male talking children and two off-screen female children who only worked.
yeah, they don't get any roles. And as we mentioned last week, Khalees was Mrs. Cratchit, didn't even get a first name.
Thanks, Dickens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emily Brewster, before we reveal the word of the year, let us talk about the process by which Merriam-Webster's word of the year is selected and contrast it with some of the other words of the year from other organizations that we might hear about.
Yes, Merriam-Webster's word of the year is based on lookups at merriam-webster.com. So we look for words that have been looked up more in relation to previous years because we're trying to use this lookup data to get a sense of words that were important during the particular year, so during 2024. So we're looking at comparisons between 2023 and earlier lookups with lookups in 2024.
More percentage over a word from the year prior.
That's right. So it's not a bunch of editors getting together and saying, "Ooh, what word do we like?" or, what word do we think captures the zeitgeist? It's really about the data. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at the data. We don't choose words that are always high in lookups unless they're, remarkably higher than they usually are.
What are those words that are always high in lookups?
Okay, they're of course the potty and body words, but then there are also
Yes.
also the words that people are constantly looking for clarification on, effect and affect,
Yeah.
which are actually in truth pronounced exactly the same. Effect, right? Those are always high lookups. There are other words that are words like ubiquitous, these kind of like $10 words that appear in conversation that people come across in print and they want clarity on them. That's what we think anyway, that people are looking for.
People learned them for their SATs and then
Right.
immediately decached that out of their memory banks.
So when I now have been privy to the get to talk to you about the word of the year for many, many years now, Emily Brewster, which is I feel so lucky about because I love words so much. I love the dictionary. I love learning about these things. So now all year I keep an ear out for what I think is going to be the word of the year. And I was wrong when I made my guess about what the word of the year was going to be. But my guess is one of the runners-up.
I mean, it had to be.
It had to have been.
If it wasn't the actual one.
Yeah, and we will get to the runners-up in a bit. But let's delay no longer. What is Merriam-Webster's word of the year 2024?
The word of the year for Merriam-Webster is polarization.
I wonder why that's the word.
It's because people love Polar Seltzer made out in Worcester, Massachusetts.
It is the best seltzer.
It is a good seltzer, but that is not the definition that we are going for the word of the year. What is the definition of polarization, Emily Brewster?
Division into two sharply distinct opposites, especially a state in which the opinions, beliefs, or interests of a group or society no longer range along a continuum, but become concentrated at opposing extremes.
And I wonder why on earth this one rose to the top in lookups this year over last for Merriam-Webster's Word of the Year. What does Merriam-Webster say about that?
Well, it certainly is tied to the election and to all the conversation leading up to the election about how polarized the country and the voters are.
Not to the dying of the polar caps?
Yeah. That's a different type of
No, I don't think that. Yeah, no.
The press release that Merriam-Webster put out there does tie into our usual Monday topic, though, which is astronomy and how the word polarization dates back to describing light waves, which is a big part of astronomy. So there is a natural Monday tie-in for this show as well. But you
Yes, also that the polar in polarization is from Latin polaris, which is used to describe the Earth's poles, and also the name of the North Star.
Yes.
And also Mark Mulcahy's old band.
Yes.
Local hero from Springfield and
Yay.
contributor to NEPM.
I think I saw him at the hot chocolate run.
I bet you did. Also, congratulations to them. $834,000. Unbelievable.
They broke a record.
You have also, at Merriam-Webster, laid out some examples as to what you think might have caused the increased use of the lookup of the word polarization in 2024 over 2023.
Well, it was used in the media for sure, but in many instances. And it's also very, very interesting to note that although the word is about division, it was used by people at both sides of that continuum where we are all crushed down at the particular ends. It's used from both sides. Both conservatives and liberals, progressives use the word polarize and polarization to describe the state of the people of the country.
You give an example from Fox News reporting that J.D. Vance's debate answer on immigration crisis shows voter polarization, while on the other end of the political spectrum, MSNBC, starring Rachel Maddow, who was at our Christmas Carol recording the other day, the 2024 presidential election has left our country more polarized than ever. And even Forbes magazine warning that workplaces, cultural polarization is becoming a pressing challenge. And if it hadn't already been a pressing challenge for your Thanksgiving holiday, it may become one for the winter holidays that you may be experiencing in the next couple of weeks.
I find it funny to say that it makes it more polarizing than ever, considering that we have had a civil war.
Well, yes, that's true. That could be a very polarizing time.
Yes.
We're speaking about the Word of the Year from Merriam-Webster, our dictionary in Springfield, with Emily Brewster, resident wordster from Merriam-Webster, on this special Monday edition of The Word Nerd, because this Word of the Year was just released today. There are some fun runners-up. To me, the runners-up are often more fun than the Word of the Year itself, because the Word of the Year 2023 was...
Authenticity.
Close. Authentic.
Authentic, sorry.
You know, it's a cool word.
Well, it's interesting to look at the bridge between those two words, especially because I think both were looked up in political context.
Yeah.
And so, like, last year you have people looking for something that is authentic, something that is real, some authenticity. And this year we see division, we see polarization.
Because of what the perception of authenticity is.
I think so.
There are people that think that Trump and what he stands for is legitimately authentic, and I think people think that Tim Walz, and especially, and also Kamala Harris, represent a different type of authenticity. But because we can't agree on those things, polarization is the word of the year in 2024.
It is an interesting progression.
Yeah.
For sure.
What was 2022's?
Gaslighting.
See, look, okay, I feel like...
We got a trend going here.
Well, like, it's just, like, the word of the year is such a... I mean, it's meant as such, but it's such an interesting temperature taken of where... like the language and the general like feeling of the people are. I kind of want to go down this rabbit hole now. I'm just gonna see if it really is that much of a straight progression of like things that really do kind of feed into each other.
Well, the last few for sure. I think the pandemic years we kind of got sidetracked, right?
Yeah, that doesn't.
Well, right. 2020, the word of the year was pandemic, and
Right.
2021, it was vaccine.
Right.
Yeah. Now, in 2019, do you remember what it was?
No idea.
No.
It was they.
Oh.
Right. Which, again, that picks up from the
Yep,
trend
it
about
does.
polarization and
It does.
authenticity and all of these things.
Yeah. It is very interesting to look at what drives people to, or what inspires curiosity from people, because this really is a mark of what people are looking up.
Yeah, in some ways, it's
So
the popular vote.
They're searching for understanding, right? They're searching for meaning, or they're searching for something to prove their own position.
Right.
In any case, they are looking to a resource for clarity.
One of the other things that we find every year after the Word of the Year is announced is the runners-up for Word of the Year, not runner-ups.
Runner-ups again.
Runners up.
Yep.
It's
Runners
the
up.
attorneys general of ways to describe the words that didn't come in first. What are some of the fun runners-up that you looked at Merriam-Webster, Emily Brewster?
I do want to clarify. These are most of these words were not really contenders for the top position, because they might have had these enormous spikes in lookups, but they did not have kind of show sustained interest throughout the year. For example, the word totality, if we can remember all the way back to April,
Right.
we'll remember that the word totality was kind of a big deal, because everybody wanted to, or people were talking about whether they were going to travel to experience, or whether they were already in a place where they could experience the totality of the solar eclipse.
Still probably the best moment of 2024 for me.
Look at it's like everyth's getting turned down on a dimmer.
Well, look over there.
Well,
Okay.
Oh my God. That is crazy.
Experiencing the totality.
it was the coolest. I'm so glad that we did it.
Yes. Kudos to Khalees for twisting my arm, saying, let's take the show on the road to the path of totality. Which is just fun to say it like that.
It is.
And that was one of the runners-up, totality.
Yeah. Yep.
The phase of an eclipse during which it is total, the state of total eclipse of the heart. Bonnie Tyler had a big year, and as we head into the Christmas season, don't forget she has the most insane Christmas song
my
of all
God,
time.
it's so
At
crazy.
the end of the movie that came out a year before Home Alone, a French horror movie where Santa Claus invades this young child's home and he booby traps it just like in Home Alone, but it ends with Bonnie Tyler's Christmas song, which is a delight.
I don't know if that's the word I would use.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Christmas.
I don't
Happy
know.
birthday, Christmas.
Happy birthday, Christmas. Yeah, it's definitely a translation from French into English for Bonnie Tyler. I'm assuming.
Help me, Santa Claus.
Can we just listen to this for the rest of the show?
No, I don't know if my psyche can genuinely take this song. Every time it's just a tiny little assault. Like, what is even happening?
It's called Dial
here?
Code Santa Claus in English.
It's the
and you should
musical
definitely watch
equivalent
it.
of like of looking and engaging with something sonically, but it's non-Euclidean.
I don't know. I love it.
More with resident wordster and senior editor at Merriam-Webster about more of the runners-up for the 2024 Word of the Year on the way.
Followed by a celebration with Amherst Media, where we'll speak with this year's award winner, Jacqueline Wallace, director of the Amherst Area Gospel Choir, Yana Oke, interim executive director at Amherst Media, Vera Dwagmani Cage, president of the board of directors, and Fanny Rothschild, another board member at Amherst Media.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by the UMass 5 College Credit Union, offering Co-op Advantage checking with cash back on all purchases, plus secure debit card controls, all from the UMass 5 mobile banking app. Insured by NCUA, umass5.coop.
What are some other fun runners-up of Word of the Year on this day that Merriam-Webster has made the announcement that polarization is the Word of the Year 2024?
Including the one that I think Merriam-Webster successfully baited a lot of their audience into thinking it might be.
Including me. I have audio of me guessing that this was going to be the Word of the Year that I recorded the other day. I just hope it's not fascism. I do have a guess what it is.
Okay.
I think it's demure. I'm like 98% sure it's demure.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
And they really should contact that one TikTok person if
Totally.
it is.
Absolutely. And I was wrong. And I even texted you about it as I was guessing, Emily
Yeah.
Brewster, but
Demure.
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 When I
You see how I do on my makeup for work? Very demure, very mindful.
Very demure, very,
Very
mindful.
mindful.
Yeah. So if you've heard, especially somebody from like Gen Z saying demure or mindful, it is because of this trend. And it's funny when I talk to Gen Xers or older, demure does not trip their radar at all. But all year I was like, demure is going to be the word of the year. I know it, because it has not abated. I mean, this wasn't like totality. This is a funny joke that continues to pop up.
It's true. And just for those who don't know about this, it was August, and this TikToker named Jules LeBron posted the first of a series of videos with this catchphrase, talking about how she applies her makeup when she's going to work, or when she's doing lots of things, actually, eventually. But the first one was about how she's doing it for work.
You see how I do my makeup for work? Very demure, very mindful. See how I look very presentable? The way I came to the interview is the way I go to the job. A lot of you girls go to the interview looking like Marge Simpson and go to the job looking like Patty and Selma. Not demure.
And demure it's a word that's relatively common, but to hear it applied in this particular context apparently made people curious about it.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it often means shy, and you're not going to do your makeup in a shy way, but I can see where she's going with this, where it's like kind of toned down a little bit for the work environment.
Yeah.
That's right. Understated. Understated, right? Not demanding attention.
Very trad wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, maybe very Glinda on a March for the Food Bank, as opposed to very Elphaba, which is not very demure
I
or
don't know.
mindful if you're going to wear green in the rain.
Well, I also feel like Glinda has way too many sparkles to be demure.
Yeah, there was some glitter involved.
Popular.
So that is one of the runners-up, demure, to polarization, which is the word of the year 2024 from Merriam-Webster, our dictionary in Springfield. Any other fun runners-up that you want to focus on, Emily Brewster?
Yes, a British term that that Taylor Swift brought to the fore, the word fortnight.
For a fortnight there we were forever.
I'm surprised with the video game Fortnite that wasn't already something on people's radar. Is it spelled differently or something?
No.
Well,
I didn't think
spelled
so.
a little differently, and the video game has been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
But Taylor Swift she also had something to do with the word authentic, by the way, for last year's word of the year, because she had used the word authentic in a really particular way also. So that played into the drive of lookups from what we could tell.
Well, she also
But
had to do with
this year-
polarization, given the fact that she endorsed Kamala Harris right after that debate, and then it didn't seem to have much of an effect, except for the people that were already Taylor Swift fans and voting for Kamala Harris. But anyway, Fortnite. Why? It's not only from a Taylor Swift song. What is a fortnight?
Just means 14 days, a period of 14 days or 2 weeks. Comes from an Old English word. I don't know why American English has eschewed it historically. Maybe we won't anymore, because, it's perfectly good.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
I use Fortnite a lot, and my relationship to it goes back to Jon Stewart pre-Daily Show, where I saw him backstage at the MTV Movie Awards interviewing Hugh Grant, who was all the rage in the early 90s. I hope I can find this clip.
A fantastic buzz about it.
A buzz was very American.
That is very American, isn't it? Are you here for a fortnight?
And Hugh Grant's reaction to the whole thing was so funny to me. And I never forgot Jon Stewart from that moment on, or the word fortnight. Just, again, playing on the British notion of this as being a more popular word in England for Hugh Grant than here in the States. But yeah, love it. Other fun runners-up, Emily Brewster?
Pander.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Word pander.
is
Pander is not
cute
it's
type
not
of
such a
bear.
common word.
That's only when your Eastern Mass family are
Yeah,
talking
if
about
you're at a
it.
zoo in Boston, you might see a panda bear.
To pander is to say, do, or provide what someone wants or demands, even though it is not proper, good, or reasonable. This is again tied to the election, because both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were accused of pandering to voters by different news outlets.
The example that Merriam-Webster gives is that an appearance on The View, Tim Wall said that Donald Trump's visit to the kitchen of a fast food restaurant showed that he would pander and disrespect McDonald's workers, while conservative news outlets accused Vice President Kamala Harris of pandering to different groups, including young voters and black voters.
I feel like neither of them have really nailed it, because is that not the whole entire point of campaigning?
Yeah.
Right.
for somebody's votes.
Although if you campaign in an authentic way, like the 2023 word of the year, maybe you do less pandering.
I guess.
We know Donald Trump loves McDonald's, so, maybe he just wanted to he wasn't pandering. Maybe he was in his element there.
I mean, if his previous presidency is anything to go by, we know that he has absolutely no taste in food. Well done steaks with
But
ketchup, please. No.
pandering is a word that contains judgment in it, right? So it is not, it doesn't define just actions, but it describes a motivation to the actor.
Right. So if you were campaigning authentically, you wouldn't be pandering, or you wouldn't be accused of it, perhaps. As
Right,
much.
but the beholder is the one who's going to say whether what you're doing is pandering or campaigning.
At least none of them said they were cowing, so it's fine, I guess.
Cowing?
Yeah. And cow
We would have had to talk about farms instead of zoos.
Other fun runners-up for Word of the Year, which, if you're just tuning in, this year Merriam-Webster's Word of the Year is polarization.
Resonate is an interesting one. I don't think it's a particularly fun word, and it comes up in the context of ChatGPT.
Huh.
Because there were studies about words that ChatGPT likes to use. And resonate is one of those words. And so there are warnings to people. If you have ChatGPT write something for you and you want to make it sound less like it was written by ChatGPT, you might want to take out the word resonate, because apparently that's one of ChatGPT's faves.
Yeah.
It makes it sound like a sleeper agent activation word.
Resonate, like the Manchurian Candidate.
Kind of.
Raymond Shaw is the bravest, kindest, warmest, most wonderful human being I've ever known in my life.
They're sending signals to Skynet through.
So we're assuming people were writing stuff with ChatGPT and then seeing Resonate pop up and then looking it up, or is it because do we think it was because they were being warned that ChatGPT does it and then that's why they looked it up?
We believe that it's tied to people being warned about this, because there was a study that came out that highlighted the words that ChatGPT was using, and that was when we saw this spike in lookups for Resonate.
I see that Merriam-Webster says that Explore, Captivate, and Tapestry are all other things that ChatGPT, with its already predispositions and biases and inherent racism that humans built into it, are words that it likes to use over and over again. I mean, maybe ChatGPT is just a huge Carole King fan, and that's why they use Tapestry over and over again. Cannot blame you, ChatGPT.
My life has been a tapestry.
Just saying that ChatGPT has good taste.
In music, at least. Any other fun? Runners-up? Emily Brewster?
Oh, this one's not at all fun, but it's a wordy sort of a word. The word allision, Allision.
I thought it was Allison, and now we're talking about Elvis Costello music. Allison. But no.
Right. Yeah. No. Allision. It's a technical term that is used for a collision when one of the things that impacts is stationary. So, I mean, two things can collide, whether one is stationary and one is moving, or they are both moving. But historically, there has been this idea that only two moving objects can collide. Otherwise, it's not really a collision.
Explain that to your insurance when you hit a tree.
Yeah, right.
It jumped out of nowhere.
Right. But in March, when the container ship, the Dali, ran into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, most of the news outlets called it a collision. But there were these maritime outlets, like any news outlet that was written for a more technical audience, applied the word allision instead.
Because the bridge wasn't going anywhere.
No.
That's right. The bridge was stationary.
And turns out, just like the Elvis Costello song, the Dali's aim is true. My aim is true. You hit that thing square on.
It tried really hard not to.
Yeah.
It did try really hard not to.
Yes.
But you also can't turn that large a ship with no electronics.
No. We're talking about the word of the year from Merriam-Webster, and its runners-up. The word of the year is polarization, a special Monday edition of the Word Nerd, because today's the day that Merriam-Webster in Springfield released that information. But as I mentioned earlier, polarization, fun, not really. But the runners-up, way more fun.
So much happened this year that I entirely forgot that was this year.
Which?
Right.
The
bridge.
Oh, the bridge, the Francis Scott Key Bridge thing. I thought you meant the polarization. I was
No.
That's been going
the
on.
polarization has been going on my whole life.
There is another runner-up that is election-related on the one end of the political spectrum, the Democrats' side of things, that I think they tried to gain some traction on and did to a certain degree. but caused
Yeah.
a lookup in this particular word that most people are very familiar with.
It's so weird.
It is weird, and that is the
Weird.
word. Weird.
Weird.
For those who are, keeping track, Tim Walz decided that he was going to call what some of the Republicans were doing weird.
These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell.
And I've heard other Democrats, including Jim McGovern on this very show, echo that very word in his description of what's been going on.
Right. The candidates, their actions, their positions, all of those were described as weird, much to the delight of many people on the left.
When people get called weird and they wear it as a badge of honor, it's oftentimes a more left-leaning view. And if you
Hey.
get called weird and you're on the right, you see it as an insult. To paint with a broad brush.
Might harken a little bit back to our nerd talk.
Right, exactly. Being called a nerd at a time was an insult from when we were talking about this last week.
But then
Right.
Huey Lewis made it hip to be square.
That's right.
Was it him?
It's hip to be square.
So interesting.
Yeah. Other ones that you want to focus on?
Well, we also have cognitive as a word that showed a distinct increase in lookups and related to especially the cognitive test to cognitive ability of the original two candidates in the 2024 presidential election.
Huh.
They were both elderly, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And so I don't know if you remember, at the end of February, there was a report of about Biden's annual physical, and it noted specifically that a cognitive test had not been part of the assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And then his cognitive ability was questioned in July after the debate performance. And then we also saw a spike later in the year about what people were describing as Donald Trump's cognitive decline. So the word cognitive was tied to both of those individuals multiple times.
Although the press seemed to really want to focus on the cognitive decline of one particular candidate, and then when that candidate was gone, they almost entirely dropped the look at cognitive decline, leaving me with some cognitive dissonance about the...
I was going to ask if there was a relative spike in dissonance also, but...
Well, we actually define cognitive dissonance at its own place, and that word also had an increase in lookups.
And
Yep.
Merriam-Webster's press release says because of discussions about states that voted against restrictions on access to abortion, but for President Trump, which was an interesting take. Perhaps we should end on the last runner-up, Emily Brewster, as many people are worried about the future of this particular state and word.
This one is democracy. Democracy is one of those words that is frequently looked up a lot, especially in recent years. What a democracy is in particular is a question. Some people like to debate whether the United States is a democracy or a republic. It is, in fact, both of these things.
Yes.
But this word was looked up more this year than it usually is.
Do you have a picture with democracy in Merriam-Webster's dictionary? And it says under it, this is what democracy looks like? And who is in that picture? Or what?
The members of the band.
Maybe it should be you, listener. You be what democracy looks like and get yourself in the dictionary.
Wow.
Now, we define democracy, the common meaning, it's the first sense of the entry for democracy in the Merriam-Webster.com dictionary is divided. First, it starts with government by the people, rule of the majority, and that's the broadest sense of democracy. Under that, we've got 1A, a form of government in which the people elect representatives to make decisions, policies, laws, etc., according to law. And that is also called a representative democracy. And some people say that it is not a true democracy, but it still is a democracy. Then we have under that a form of government in which the people vote directly against or in favor of decisions, policies, laws, etc. And that is also called a direct democracy and also a pure democracy.
Mm-hmm.
But the U.S. does qualify certainly as a democracy. It is specifically a representative democracy.
And a republic.
And a republic.
Right.
And a republic.
Interesting that democracy, according to Merriam-Webster, doesn't appear anywhere in the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution.
We love it anyway.
Sorta.
We like to say that we do. Do we? That will be one of the questions we continue to ponder, both linguistically and as a society.
For as long as the country exists.
Move into the new year, at least. Emily Brewster, we know that Oxford English Dictionary also does a Word of the Year, and that the American Dialect Society does a Word of the Year. Perhaps before the year is out, in our last episode of 2024 next week. We can talk about those if they are already out.
Yeah, the Oxford. I'm looking at the Oxford
Don't
one
ruin
right
it to
now.
me. I don't want it to be ruined.
Yep. Yes, we can talk about all the others. Oxford's is already out. Collins Dictionary has one out. Dictionary.com has released theirs. Also, the American Dialect Society does not vote on their word of the year until early January.
Okay, so something to look forward to there. And we don't like to play favorites, but we do. You're our favorite dictionary, Emily Brewster.
Thank you.
Right here in Springfield, Massachusetts, with good old Merriam-Webster.
The Collins word of the
don't
year
ruin
is ridiculous.
Save it for next week.
Fine.
And if you've ever got a question for the Word Nerd, send it our way. thefab413@nepm.org. Thank you, Tiny Tim.
God bless us, everyone.
No matter how polarizing your questions are.
Now we're going to celebrate several pillars of the community at once when we hear about Amherst Media's upcoming second annual Raise Your Voice Gala and the award winner who will be awarded there.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by UMass Amherst School of Public Policy, offering graduate programs in public affairs, public policy and administration, data analytics, and computational social science. umass.edu/SPP. The Fabulous 413 podcast is funded by Northeast Solar, helping customers make the switch to solar for savings, energy security, and tax incentives. Learn more at northeast-solar.com.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. This Saturday, December 14th, Amherst Media hosts its second annual Raise Your Voice Gala, which this year will honor the director of the Amherst Area Gospel Choir.
And we are joined by Yana Oak, the interim director at Amherst Media, Vera Dragmani-Cage, president of the board of directors, Fanny Rothschild, board member, and the award winner, Ms. Jacqueline Wallace, the gala awardee and director of the Amherst Area Gospel Choir, which we were just hearing right there. Let's start with the president of the board who set up this conversation, Vera. For those who don't know what Amherst Media is, if they can't divine it through the title, what is Amherst Media?
We are a nonprofit, community-based organization, and we do the public, educational, and government broadcasting for our community. So we air the town council meetings and the school committee meetings, and also we cover some community events as well. And people can come into our space and use our equipment, be trained, and produce their own shows.
It's amazing. It's community television. It was Amherst Community Television for a long time. Right. And these have largely been funded by cable subscriptions, right? So now, what's the status right now? Did you have to change the business model to keep this up and running, or was it always a nonprofit like this?
Right. So now we have to exercise our fundraising muscle and compete as other nonprofits to exist and survive. So we have to write those grants. We have to, scale up our development activities. And one of the things that we're doing is putting on this gala to interact with the business community, with the banks, and with the foundations. So we're pretty grateful. We get some of our funding through the Mass Cultural Council, the local Cultural Council. Our event here, it mobilizes a lot of other folks that may not know about us, and so it's a really great way to connect the community. That's why Mrs. Jacqueline Wallace is here with us, and will be honored this Saturday. So yeah, we definitely need to scale up on our fundraising. As people abandon cable, our funding gets, every quarter we get funding, and it's dwindling with every quarter. So definitely that's why we're here today, to let people know to support their local community access organizations.
Similarly, Anna, have you had to shift your focus in how what Amherst Media puts out is distributed? Because there isn't as much direct TV production for TV shows or movies or things. It's all streaming.
Mm-hmm. So we are definitely acknowledging that the way media has been spreading has changed a lot, and we've adapted by putting things on YouTube and incorporating like Instagram posts, TikTok posts, but then eventually we'll breadcrumb people back to our channels, which are channels 12, 15, and 9. One channel operates and puts out entertainment pieces, one puts out education, one puts out the government pieces. So that's how we've adapted throughout the years.
We're speaking about Amherst Media and their Jean Haggerty Award winner for the year at their gala, which is coming up this Saturday, December 14th, Ms. Jacqueline Wallace, who is the director of the Amherst Area Gospel Choir. And I want to hear all about the history of this gospel choir and who's in it and why you started it. But before we leave the topic of Amherst Media proper, we live in an era where journalism is really, really suffering, where, NEPM is a public institution that can be funded as a nonprofit, but we don't have the capacity to go to every single select board meeting or town council meeting, as it were, in Amherst. This is where these community stations really are adding to the conversation about one of the runners-up for Word of the Year for Merriam-Webster, democracy, where we can hear about, if we can't attend these things, what is actually going on in the municipalities where we live. Fanny Rothschild, you're one of the board members of Amherst Media. How long have you been involved with this organization, and have you seen it shift in the times between when people were subscribing to cable and getting a robust, maybe perhaps amount of money through cable subscriptions to where we are now?
Well, I came to Amherst in 1983, and I was teaching video at UMass, and I joined what was called ACTV back then. Mm-hmm. And I loved our location. We had a building that was owned by Eversource, and it was really a community center, and it was like my second home in Amherst. And I was busy running camera and helping people create shows, and it was very exciting. So what I'm seeing now is Eversource stopped their lease to us. And so we're in a smaller space. That's what I'm seeing. And that's also why I joined again. I used to be on the board about 20 years ago, and now I'm on the board again. Uh-huh. And I would love to see us raise money to have another space, because I really felt like the community was coming together. So many people were creating their own shows, if you look at our archives. And it was such a hub, and I want us to continue being a hub, but even more so now. Right. But I think we need a new building also, so we need to raise money. And I feel like what we're doing now with the gala is we're contacting banks, and Vera and I did a lot of that, and we're making relationships with the local banks, and I feel like we can go back to them and have them help support our building a new building. And so...
And just to interject, I want to bring the late Dr. Dee Shabazz into the space. The building project is on pause right now, and we own the parcel of land in Amherst, but right now we're renting space on University Drive, 101 University Drive, and we'll be there probably for the next year until we, get really into the community and get local community support in a major way. We're very fortunate to be speaking with Mass Development and learning this process. And so I just want to bring Dr. Dee Shabazz into the space because she was a former president. She was a board member that recruited me, and the new building will be named after her.
Oh, wow.
That's my friend.
Yes. And my friend, too. And we think of her. Amilcar Shabazz is also another amazing community member and very much involved in the work that Amherst Media, no longer Amherst Community Television, right, has been doing. The award that Ms. Jacqueline Wallace will be receiving is named after someone else who is involved in Amherst Media, Jean Haggerty. Tell us about the Jean Haggerty Award and why it's named after them.
So Jean Haggerty transplanted herself from Texas to Amherst and immediately got involved with senior low-income housing community and really got residents, regular people, excited about fighting for basic essentials, what they need to survive and to thrive. And she was involved with Amherst community TV through the late Isaac Ben Ezra. So he became the first recipient, but the board loved her so much. And she, has passed away as well. But this is what we do. We honor our ancestors and the people who have paved the way to make it a better community for us today.
In context of like the other folks that have won this award, what about this year's recipient really stood out about her work to make her deserving of this
I
award?
love Jacqueline Wallace because she does so many things behind the scenes, and her husband is more famous in name because he has a whole award named after him called the Roger Wallace Teaching and Excellence Award, and every year they give an educator an award that does fabulous work in our community. And I saw Miss Jacqueline Wallace as someone who, even if she was not feeling 100%, she would show up to these events and bring her choir. And do you know how hard that is to bring over a dozen and a half individuals to come together?
Khalees has a large band, but not quite
my
choir
goodness.
size.
It's only 9 people.
Yeah.
It's bad enough.
She's been doing this work for almost nearly 2 decades, and just amazing pillar of our community, and we just want to love her up.
Well, we are going to introduce you, Fabulous 413 listeners, to the Jean Haggerty Award winner, Ms. Jacqueline Wallace, coming up in just a little bit as we are talking about the second annual Raise Your Voice Gala Dinner Performance Awards and Dance that is happening this Saturday at the Student Union Ballroom at UMass Amherst as a benefit for Amherst Media, and that's coming up in just a second.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on 88.5 NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. We're talking about the second annual Raise Your Voice Gala Dinner Performance Awards and Dance that's a benefit for Amherst Media this Saturday evening at the Student Union Ballroom at UMass Amherst. We're joined by some board members and the interim director of Amherst Media. Yana Oak is the interim director. Vera Dwagmani Cage is the president of the board, and Fanny Rothschild is a board member. But they are going to honor with the Jean Haggerty Award Ms. Jacqueline Wallace, who is the director of the Amherst Area Gospel Choir. You are a vision in green with your pink Stanley Cup. You are embodying all of Wicked in your presence here in the studio with us today. And that's perfect because that is a big singing musical movie and Broadway show.
That's my intent.
And you are, I know it's a choir, but you're a big part of the singing behind that choir, too. You really bring the power to that thing. Tell us about the origin of the Amherst Area Gospel Choir.
Well, the origin, I guess, begins with me for the choir. And I say that because my grandmother was a choir director and the pianist at our little tiny church in Crossett, Arkansas. And my mother was a choir director at Shorter College in Little Rock. So it started with me and my listening to them, which I did not care about at all at that age. And then, being exposed to, like, in the Valley, Horace Boyer. And I just was so enamored of his work and how he brought gospel music and elevated it to a position in higher education and at colleges so it could now be deemed as a major in college areas. So, and then I attended Goodwin AME Zion Church, and that church was where we had a little choir.
And that's at Amherst College, right?
No,
not on campus.
No,
But
not on
it's
campus.
in Amherst.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is in Amherst, but not affiliated. So we started out at Goodwin Memorial Church, and we had a program, a Christmas program. We decided, let's have a Christmas program. And the pastor said, oh, no, you can't have people talking in between. So we would give like a half a minute kind of view of, because it was a black gospel.
Yeah.
It was a black gospel. And so we would let people know a little bit about each song. And he said, you can't give people a microphone and it takes so long, blah, blah, blah. And so I was really inspired by that. And I said, okay, it's on. So what we did was we then took that program and we did it at the church. And our church at that time fit about 60 people. So there were about 80 people that came, so we had to turn away people. And it was a storm, like a It was a snowstorm, hail, everything. But people came anyway. They're like, I just drove all the way here. So the next year we had it at Amherst College, and, they allowed us to use their big Johnson Hall there. And we had a great time singing. We sing all kinds of things from like a song called Strange. Yeah, it's a jazz kind of song. Like, strange, my burden's lighter. Strange, my pathway's brighter. Ever since the Lord came and took control. Blah, blah, blah. We also sing the other kinds of, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. All kinds of stuff. So we moved from there to singing for all kinds of events in town. We've been at just about every Juneteenth expression, the raising of the red, black, and green flag on the campus. We've worked with, what is Anita?
Ancestral Bridges.
Ancestral Bridges, yes. We've done that. We've been at the Porter Phelps Huntington Museum every year. With some Onaomi Jean Moss, some very fabulous
incredible storyteller
people.
and former award winner. Is she? No, I don't know.
I think so.
No, maybe. I don't know.
She not?
Not
Okay.
yet.
She deserves one.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she certainly does.
Next year.
Next year.
And let's see, what else?
4th of July, I think.
4th of July.
And Amherst Survival Center, right? Have you been?
Every year for the Survival Center, because that's our heart.
Tell us about that.
Well, when we go to sing there, and we usually have like 8 to 22 people. So it can go up to 30 at different times. And when we go to the Amherst Survival Center, it's so beautiful because people actually sing with us. We take the microphone around and we say, this little light of mine, what's your name? I'm Henry, this little light of mine. We do that. And they join in. By now they know the songs, they clap. And some people like to take the microphone. Somebody took the microphone last year, and they were just thinking about it. I was like, okay. All right. But they were kind, and they gave it back. So, but the Survival Center, as you know, provides so much for our community, a place where you can go and, when you're in those desolate places. I was in those desolate places. We were very poor as I was growing up. And those days are over. I have a song about that, too. One of the songs that we sing is I Don't Feel No Ways Tired. I'm like, dude, of course we're tired. But it was transformed, that song, which is a spiritual, into Can't Give Up Now. So we used the same kind of words, but we have to acknowledge that we get tired. Folks get tired. But they also are saying, the ancestors are behind me, like Vera had mentioned, and they're saying, look, baby girl, we went through this, and you can go through this too, one step at a time. So we can't give up on that. So we did a lot of Christmas events. Well, 200 people would come. I think that was the highest number we had, was like 198 people at the First Congregational Church. That was a lot of fun. We would have musicians there with us, and I want to come and hear your people. Yeah, I do.
Soul Magnets backing up the Amherst Area Gospel Choir as a
Woo,
band.
woo, woo.
I'm
Yes.
there for that.
We have a couple of jazz singers. Hala Lord, she's a jazz singer, and she would love to do.
Oh, I know
some of that.
Hala.
You know Hala?
Yeah,
Okay.
we used to play kickball.
Oh, the Valley. It's a weird place.
It's a very, very tiny
Yeah.
place. I want to make sure that we actually talk about the gala itself before we run out of time with you all here, because that's part of, again, is why we're all here talking about the wonderful things that Amherst Media does and the wonderful things that the Amherst Area Gospel Choir does. So tell us about the second annual Raise Your Voice Gala.
Oh, so we're going to have amazing performers, including a Cambodian dance troupe that's coming up. Yana, can you speak to that, please?
So, Cambodian dance troupe that opened up for the grand opening of the Cambodians in Amherst exhibit is actually coming out to dance, do a blessing dance as part of the set. Indra's Artistic Creations, and the instructor is Kenneth very amazing and talented person. And my cousin's actually part of the dance team, so
Nice.
they wear traditional outfits and everything. So we're celebrating the community, celebrating so many cultures, and all the accomplishments of Amherst Media.
Excellent.
And we have a keynote speaker coming based out of Worcester. Her name is Celia Blue Johnston, and she will provide the keynote address about raise your voice and what that means for us as a people and as a community.
And what about the Amherst Area Gospel Choir themselves?
Do
Are
we
we
get to
having
hear
just
them?
the director
Oh my gosh.
doing a solo
We're
like
gonna,
we got today?
We're going to have a mini concert, people, so please come out and join us on Saturday the 14th. It's going to be amazing. It's like a big holiday party. And I want to give a shout out to Ken Toong, who is in charge of auxiliary services on the University of Massachusetts at Amherst campus.
He's a big reason why they win every year the best campus food.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And there's going to be 3 entrees for us on Saturday. It's a buffet. Okay. And there's 2 desserts, salads.
Bunch
it's going
of
to be
apps.
amazing. We are just come for the food alone.
And it's all to benefit Amherst Media, which, as we mentioned before, is doing this important work of keeping democracy in front of people's eyes in a time when democracy and its institutions and the Fourth Estate really, really is struggling.
Both
So-
legislative and creative too,
Yes,
because
and
if
that's
you've
the
got
other
an idea, there's people that are there that can help you maybe make that idea a little bit more real. And so, in addition to helping your community, you can find out about that as well.
It is the 2nd annual Raise Your Voice Gala Dinner, Performance Awards, and Dance. It's happening this Saturday, 5:30 to 10, the Student Union Ballroom at UMass. It's a benefit for Amherst Media, and we've been joined by Amherst Media's interim Executive Director, Yana Oak, as well as the President of the Board, Vera Dogmoney Cage, and Fanny Rothschild, another board member, who will all be honoring Ms. Jacqueline Wallace, who was wonderful enough to grace us with her voice.
And the choir.
And the choir, who is the head of the director of the Amherst Area Gospel Choir. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
On the next Fabulous 413, we're celebrating the end of over a decade of drag with House of Horrors, who will host their last drag brunch on December 15th. Founder Horrors Divorce talks with us about their drag and their gender-expansive family of entertainment they've built.
We're also building something beautiful with the folks at Mill River Slab Works, who are part of the Lashaway family of lumber. Jerry Lashaway and Josh Devon will walk us through their showroom in Westfield. I'm Monty Belmonte.
I'm Clee Smith. See you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.